stayed on. And it did. A wonderful conference we're at. Lots of good words. And if you can get onto the podcast to listen to them, I recommend it. It's just so much good stuff out there. And it's amazing how he was talking about moving beyond. The youth camp this summer is beyond. And a number of places where exact same things are being preached, shared. And it's not like, you got one thing here and one thing here and one thing here. It's all coming together. And it's amazing to listen to it. Lately, I've been going on it's what happens when you try to use a paper Bible instead of an electric one all of a sudden. I don't know. Things start falling out and coming out all over the place. I've been really lately working on who is God, and we all know who God is and why, but really, who is he? How is he different? We look at people, I know Graham, but I don't know who he is. I know who he is, but I don't know him, really. I know who he is, and I can talk to him, and, I know a bit of stories, and Ken I know, and, Ed I know. You know these people, but you really don't know the intricacies of how they work and what's going on in their minds all the time. Not the same with God. I know who he is, but what really is going on in there between me and him? Now, next week I'm going to get into that a whole bunch more, but today I was going to talk about the fear of God. Because we see it in the Bible, the fear of God. And you think, oh my goodness, the fear of God. We better start shaking because he's fearful. No, it's not that fear. Now, I came up with this, it struck me as a good way to start. If you don't understand the fear of God, you will fear God. If you do understand the fear of God, you will fear God. Notice it was the same thing. No matter whether you understand or not, you're going to fear him. It's just a matter of how are you going to fear him. What does it mean to fear him? And why should we fear him? There's got to be a reason we're told to fear him. In Deuteronomy 6:24, it says, "The Lord commanded as to all the statutes to fear the Lord our God, for our good always, that he might preserve us alive as in that day." God is telling us to fear him. And not just, fear me. That's it. No, he's telling us why. Fear him. It was Deuteronomy 6:24. The command, do all the statutes to fear the Lord our God for our good. Always. It's for my good to fear him. It's not just to fear him because he wants me to be afraid, and he doesn't want me to be afraid. Let's get that straight. But it's for my good to fear him the way he wants me to fear him. It's for my good that he might preserve us alive. So if I fear him, he's going to help preserve me. So there's a reason to fear God. And as I get on, you'll understand why fear is such a misunderstood thing when we say fear the God. Because some people, when they say fear God, it's like, oh my goodness, protect me. He can strike me down at any minute. That's why I fear him. No, I don't fear him because of that. I do fear him. Now, in Hebrew, there's three basic groups of words for fear. One of them is, when you take it back to the word pictures, it means a naked hook or a fish hook, which is that terror or dread. We all know that fear. Well, I've never experienced that terror or dread, but I can imagine people are in life-threatening situations where all of a sudden this terror comes upon them. That's one fear they talk about. And in Joshua 1:9 is one place they use that word. Have I not commanded thee, be strong and of good courage, do not be afraid, neither dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you. He's saying, Joshua's going out into war. Now, I've never been in war. I've never been in a place where there's even close to that. But I can imagine the terror that could come upon you. I've seen movies of World War II where, the guys coming off the beaches, coming out of these boats. The thing goes down, they're running. There's machine gun fire everywhere. Guys are falling beside them. I can imagine the terror that might come on people when they're doing that. And God is saying, to Joshua, don't be afraid. Don't feel that terror. But that's not the fear they're talking about when they talk about the fear of God. There's no terror involved if you fear God properly. The second word they have for the fear of God, it's a real interesting word. It means what happens, and again, back to the word pictures, what happens when there is no mother? That is a type of fear in the Hebrew language. Well, think about it. When does a child cry? When they can't find mommy or daddy. That is one of the fears in the Hebrew language, when there's no mother present. What happens when there's no mother? And again, this word is never used in connection with God. The first one is not used in connection with God for his people. The other people, the tribes that came against Israel, is used sometimes there, but never against God's people in Israel, or God's people and God. The second one is never used in terms of God and his people either. There's never that sense of, I fear God because I've got that feeling when there's nobody there to protect me. That is not used in the fear of God. And one they have there is Psalm 55:4. My heart is sore pain within me. The terrors of death are fallen upon me. And I think that's the kind of fear we all get sometimes. Something's happened. Oh, what's going on? There's nobody here to help me. What am I going to do? I've got no help. I can't see any way out. It's not that terror where you're cowering in the corner, but you're wondering, what is going to happen? I've got nobody to help me. That's kind of that fear. And we shouldn't have that fear with God, because we know He's always here. No matter where we are, He's there with us. Psalm 139, you can go, I didn't have it marked down, but you can go through that. No matter where you go, I go to this end, I go to that end, God's with me. I go to the heavens, God's with me. I go over there, God's with me. He's with me. Now, we still have that fear sometimes of being left alone. Yeah, anybody else get that fear sometimes? Yeah, we get it. Everybody gets it sometimes. Now, it's different levels of it, but your spouse goes away for a week on a holiday or someone after 2 or 3 days. I think, you get sad, there's nobody here, and get lonely, and those things come upon us. Or when a loved one dies, there's that emptiness that comes. And it's that fear of, what happens when there's no mother? That fear comes on us. And again, that's not the fear they're talking about when they say, fear God. The one that they use when they say, the verse, I think most of us know, Proverbs 1:7, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Well, does that mean if I cower in terror, I would get knowledge? Does that mean if I fear because there's nobody with me, I'll get knowledge? Well, obviously that doesn't make any sense at all. The fear of the Lord there, and the word they use is the hand you see. Again, going back to the word picture, the 2 letters, the hand and see. That fear is the hand that you see. The fear of the Lord, the hand that I can see is God, then I am in the beginning of knowledge. The hand that I see. So if I fear God, if the hand I can see is God, then that's what they're talking about, that reverential fear. And we've heard that it's not that terror fear, it's a reverential fear. But if you can see it's His hand that is guiding you, then there's that reverential fear to know. And looking for something for next week, I just came across this, and it just struck me as amazing. As Jen and I talked about this a while ago, she said, well, what is the fear of God to you? And because I told her about the fear of God, and she said, what is the fear of God to you? And I said, well, when I go walking at night, I look up at the stars, and I just go, to me, that's a fear of God. I just look up and think, like there's no words. I can't explain what I'm thinking because there's no words. Yeah, you just look up and think, there's no word. It's just amazing. And to me, that is the fear of God, that awesome fear. And I read something last night. The farthest object that we can see with telescopes. Now, I don't know how they measure this. To me, it's out there. But the farthest star galaxy, I forget which it was, that they can see with a telescope is 13.3 billion light years away. So if you go speed of light, 186,000 miles per second, or if you're the new type people who know kilometers, it's 300,000 kilometers per second. 3 times 10 to the 8 meters per second, 300,000 kilometers per second. If you could go that fast for 13.3 billion years, you would get there. If you just went that fast for 13 billion years, you wouldn't get there. I don't know how they measure, but I read that and think, I mean, how can you not have your jaw drop. Because when you think he is there, God is everywhere, right? He is there, 13.3 billion light years away. But he's here. And he's got all those out there. He knows every star. He knows every galaxy. And I read once, I forget numbers, there's 1 million stars in a galaxy, and there's 1 million galaxies, billion galaxies out there, and you figure out how many stars there are out there. I have no idea. It's one of those things I say, my brain just turns to mush when I think about it. But you think he knows all those. He holds all those. He made all those. He made me. He knows me. To me, that is the fear of God. Not that I cower, not that I think he can, say, you're bad, snuff you out. No. It's that when you look up and there's nothing you can do but just the song we sang, there's no words. There's no words I can come up with. There's no deed I can do. There's nothing. All you can do is accept that's him and say, God, I'm in total awe of you. And again, that's that fear of God is the beginning of understanding. The hand that you see, if the hand that you see is God, like I look up there and it's his hand. The hand I see is God. I fear it because it is the hand that I see. When I look at what he's done for me, I say, the hand I see is his hand. And it's that fear. And again, the fear is not a good word because no matter how we preface it, no matter how we explain it, no matter how many times we define it, when you say the fear of God, you always get that idea of fear. We're not going to get past that because even when I say it, I still get that idea of, that deep breath. But it's not that fear. No matter how many times I say it to myself, I still get that idea of fear. Even though you say it's a reverential fear, it's awestruck fear, there's still that, tenseness. And there shouldn't be any of that. The fear of God shouldn't have any of that tenseness. And if you look at that verse in Proverbs, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom instruction. Now, a lot of Hebrew poetry always goes in two halves. The fear of the Lord, beginning of knowledge. So what's the opposite of that? They despise instruction. He wants us to have the beginning of knowledge. He wants us to fear him in that reverential fear so that we can have knowledge and we won't despise wisdom. If we don't have the fear of God, we will begin to despise wisdom and despise instruction. We have to have that reverential, I'm going to start saying reverential, awesome attitude. I just don't like that word fear. I know that's what King James and a lot of other ones say, and I know that's translated to fear, but it's that awesome attitude we've got to have towards him. If we don't have that awesome attitude towards him, we're not going to have the beginning of wisdom. If we don't have the wisdom, we're going to despise it. The fear of the Lord is the basis of all our knowledge. If we start, science is good, but if we rely on science for everything, we're going to lose that reverential, awesome respect of God. We have to have him at the beginning. Not saying ignore science, because science is a lot of wonderful stuff, but we've got to keep God at the center of it and say, does this line up with what God tells me? Even though it's science, because let's face it, at one time, science said the earth was the middle of the universe. That's what it said at one time. And we all know that's not right now. So science even itself changes stuff. Even when I was in school, we were told there was atoms and electrons went singing around these atoms, and these electrons could jump from this atom to that atom, and they were never in between, all this stuff. And now they're saying, you know what? We had that wrong. Now maybe there's nothing there, and it's just vibrations and everything. So even science changes. That's why we've got to be careful. Just because science says it doesn't mean you've got to jump on it and say, okay, yep, science said it. Science changes. God's word never, ever changes. What he said is true was true when the earth began. It was true now, and it will be true as far as we can go. That's why I know I said to Steve once, he said it too, people say the Bible is true, and I said, well, I don't like to say the Bible is true. The Bible is truth. Everything in it is true, but the Bible is in itself truth. The fear of the Lord means living by the stipulation of the covenant. I copied this out of a book, so don't think I got these great words myself. The fear of the Lord means living by the stipulation of the covenant in graceful response to God's redeeming grace. What did he do for us? Where should I belong at the end of my life? I mean, let's face it, where should we belong? I've got nothing to give God. It's only his grace. His grace is what gives me the opportunity to say, you know what, God? I want to be with you. And really, he could say, well, you know what? Nope. The life you've lived, no way. But because of his grace, he said, you know what? Yes, you can. It's a respectful knowledge of God's existence, his authority, and his standards. Like, we should respect police. Sometimes we don't because they do things we don't like. We should respect our government. We don't sometimes because they do things we don't like. But God, we have to respect the knowledge of his existence. We've got to respect that he's here. Respect his authority. If God tells me to do something, God, I don't feel like that today. No, he's the authority. He's got to be the authority in my life. If he says, I want you to do this, I have to do it. Well, how do I know what he wants me to do? A lot of it's in here. A lot of it is in his word of what he wants me to do. That doesn't mean it tells me, when I wake up in the morning, what am I supposed to do? Who am I supposed to visit? But it tells me how I'm supposed to live, how I'm supposed to treat other people. If I respect his authority on that, that's what he wants. I have to respect his standards. Do we understand his standards all the time? No. Do we agree with his standards all the time? Maybe not. Do we agree with his authority all the time? Maybe not. But we have to respect it and go by it. Why? Because he is, he is. Period. That's it. No matter what we come up with, we can't come up with anything that would anyway have any authority or reason to challenge anything he said. I can't come up with any argument that would make any sense in my mind to argue against God. There's nothing I can come up with. He can say, I can read in here, it says this I should live, and there's no reason I can come up with. I can come up with a lot of reasons maybe, but when I put them before God, they're just useless. Everything he said, I have to respect because I have a reverential attitude towards him. He made me. He made each one of it. He made everything. If you can see it, he made it. It's that simple. And when you think about how awesome, again, awesome is none of those words I don't like because it's, that's all. I don't know if it still is that way, but years ago, everything was awesome. Oh, that's awesome. And it got to be such a word like, who cares? It's just awesome, But it's that awe-inspiring when you look up and see that God made all this. He made me. That's what I feel when I say I feel the fear of God. It's just that I feel so, in a good way, so small before him. Not that I'm insignificant. I know I am significant in his eyes. But I look up and see all that and all, 7.5 billion people in the world. I don't know what the number is now. But, I can look at it and say, I am so small, but I am so important to him. And when I look at it, that's what I see. I am so, in reality, so insignificant. But in reality to him, I'm so significant. And that to me is that fear of him, fear in him. Maybe not fear of him, fear in him. That I am so insignificant, seemingly, but so significant in reality. To him, like you say, who's God's favorite? I am. And every one of us can say that. Linda can say that. Who's God's favorite? Linda. She can say that, and she's right. But I can say it too. I'm God's favorite. And every one of us, it's like, asking me, which is your favorite grandchild? Yeah, right. Which one am I holding at the time? That's my favorite. They're all favorites. You can't pick a favorite. They're all favorites. And that's the way God looks at us, and that's that awe-inspiring reverence that I see no matter what I've done. Anybody ever done anything bad in the last year? No matter what I've done, God still says, you know what? Come here. You're my favorite. Give me a hug. no matter what I've done. And I know some of us have done this, and some of us have done a whole bunch of stuff, and other people, no matter where. If you say to, God says, you say, God, I've messed up, but I really am sorry. I really want to change. I really want to be with you. He'll say, come here. Give me a hug because you're my favorite now. Every one of us is our favorite when we go to him and say, you know what, God? You are just so awe-inspiring. I have no words. I have no words. There's nothing I can do. All I can do is fall at your feet, stand before your throne and say, just as I am, without one plea. Yeah. Job 28:28 says, and unto man he said, behold, the fear of the Lord, that is wisdom. And to depart from evil is understanding. And again, that poetry idea, two parts. Fear of the Lord, that's wisdom. To depart from evil is understanding. So wisdom and understanding kind of go together. So fearing the Lord and departing from evil are kind of the same thing. You've got to depart from evil to fear the Lord. And that's reverential fear of the Lord. If you're living an evil life and you fear the Lord, it's probably that terror fear, like, what's he going to do to me, if you're living an evil lifestyle. But if you can shun the evil lifestyle, that is the same as fearing the Lord. The fear of the Lord, that is wisdom. Departing from evil is understanding. So wisdom and understanding are kind of the same. Fearing the Lord and departing from evil are the same. That's the way Hebrew poetry works. It says the same thing twice in two different ways. Proverbs 9:10. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of holy is understanding. Again, the two parts. Fear of the Lord, knowledge of holy. Wisdom, understanding. Wisdom and understanding are really the same thing. If I have knowledge, I understand how things work. If I have a knowledge of the nuclear station, I have an understanding of how it works. I have no knowledge of the nuclear station other than this big building. I have no idea how it works. I know heat gets made and stuff goes around and electricity goes up the wires. That's all I know. I know there's nuclear stuff up there. But I don't know how it works. But if we have knowledge, we have understanding. If I have knowledge of God, I have an understanding of him. And that fear that brings the wisdom is the same as the knowledge of the holy that brings the understanding. To fear him is to know his holiness. Like that reverential fear. If I can see and understand how holy he is, I will understand that awesome reverential fear we should have of him. Because how holy is he? I'm on a scale of 1 to 10. How holy is he? 127. He is so far past the scale that it's ridiculous to ask how holy God is. It's a ridiculous question. Because there's no way to describe how holy he is. He is, like you would say the Bible is truth, God is holy. Not that he is, everything about him is holy. If you want to define holy, you put God after it. You look in the dictionary, what is the definition of holy? God. That's it. He's about as, nothing can be holier than him. And if we understand that holiness, we will understand the reverential fear we need to have for him. Because could I ever be holy enough to stand in his holy presence? No. Not without his grace, Jesus, and all those things that go into that. There's no way I could be ever holy enough to stand in front of his holiness. Like Ezekiel's, I'm a man of unclean lips. Bring the coal and put it on my lips because I've got nothing. That's the way I feel sometimes I go before God. In a way I've got nothing, but in a way I've got everything. And it's those things you talk to non-Christians sometimes, they say, what are you talking about? How can you be nothing and have everything? But that's the way it is with God. In me I've got nothing, but in God I've got everything. And that's what we've got to understand with the holiness, with the fear of God. In myself, it can be that terror fear. But in God, it's that awesomeness to look up and say, he's got everything. That's why I have this respectful, awesome reverence attitude towards him. Psalm 34:11 says, "Come, ye children, listen to me, and I will teach you the fear of the Lord." You know, we get this reverential understanding by reading his word, by praying, and to me, by looking at nature. I go outside. I love walking at night on a clear night. You look up, and especially if you go downtown where the lights are, and you can see some stars. And then as you get away from the main street, I look up and there's thousands more, millions more, and think that that's what he did. That's what he is, and it just leaves me speechless. And when I get to that speechless part, I can say, I understand the reverential fear of God. Because he's, like I said, and I know I said that, the farthest thing we see is 13.3 billion light years, but that's one direction. Let that sink in for a minute. That's one direction. If we can go 13.3 billion light years that way, what about that way? Or that way? Or that way? If you just think of, there's probably stuff past 13.3 billion light years, but if you get 13.3 billion light years in every direction, I got no words. I don't know what else to say. I've got no words. But to me, that is the fear of God, when you can get to the point where you can look at him and just have no words left for him, because he is so awe-inspiring that that's all you've got is awe for him. Now, that's all Old Testament, Hebrew. The Greek in the New Testament has the good words for the fear of the Lord as well. But we've got to remember, even though it's New Testament, they still knew Hebrew and spoke Hebrew probably, because they were Israelites. They lived in Greece or Israel, so they probably spoke Hebrew. But the New Testament is written in Greek, so they come up with Greek words. The word in Greek to be fear is to revere, to stand in awe of someone, to revere it. Now that we understand much easier. 2 Corinthians 7 says, "Having therefore these promises, dearly beloved, let us cleanse ourselves from all filthiness of the flesh and spirit, perfecting holiness in the fear of God." In that reverence of God. Now, I know on earth we have people who we revere, have reverence for. Now, I know I've read stories when people go see the King or the Queen of England. You don't just walk up and shake their hand. Hi King, how are you? No, you come in, you're told where to stand, you're told what to do, and you bow or curtsy, and you behave in a certain manner because of the position the person holds. And the people say it's not the person, it's the position. And that's true. When you go to see the king, it's not so much the person, it's that position of the king. When you go to see Prime Minister Trudeau, he is addressed as the Right Honorable Prime Minister Trudeau, whether you like him or not. He is the Right Honorable Prime Minister Trudeau, because he is the ruler of our country. You have that reverence and respect for the office. Whether you like the person or not is indifferent. You have the respect for the office. With God, it's the same thing. We have the respect for, not so much like his office, but you have the respect just because of who he is. There is that respect because he is God. I have that reverential fear because he is God. Not because of anything he's done, which he has done enough that I should have respect for him. Not because of anything he has said, and he has said many things that I should have respect for, but just because, and again, office isn't quite the right word, but he holds the office of God. I have to have a reverence because he is God. Whether I agree with what he has said or not, I have to revere him, have respect for him, because he is God. That's just it. We don't, it says perfecting holiness in the fear of God. We can't perfect holiness by cowering in fear. We can't perfect holiness by that other Hebrew word of, that fear when the mother's not present. You're not going to learn perfect holiness that way. The only way you can perfect holiness is by realizing who God is. Like, I can try in myself forever and ever and ever to be good. I can do good things. I can do wonderful things. But I'm never going to be holy like God. I am never, in myself, I can never get there. And I've got to realize that it's only through God that I can get close to that, and He's the only one that can get me there. And I was talking to one guy I know, and I taught him, and he likes me, and he has a respect for me, which I do appreciate. And he said, but Mr. Richards, you've never done anything wrong. I said, guess again. I said, you don't know half this stuff. And I'm not trying to make myself out as bad, but he looked at me, again, the position of a teacher, and the position he knew me. I said, because of that, I was good. And I said, no, I'm not. I'm not good. None of us are good in that sense of God wants good. The only way we can be good is in God's holiness. We've got to look to Him to see that holiness that we can have. And that's that reverential, awesome, respectful fear that we're supposed to have, to know that it's only because of Him. It's only because of Him that I can call myself good. And in God, I can call myself good because of what He's done and what I am trying to attain through Him. But it's only through Him. 1 Peter 2:17 says, honor all men, love the brotherhood, fear God, honor the king. Like he's, 4 commands there. And again, this is Peter talking, but he says, honor all men. Well, I can do my best to do that. Love the brotherhood. Most of them I can do that. No. No. I'm being a bit sarcastic there. It says love the brotherhood. We've all got people we like, let's be honest. There's some we like more than some you give them the hug and okay. But we're supposed to love the brotherhood. It doesn't matter whether we agree with them or we're told, love the brotherhood. The last one, honor the king. Well, in this case, we honor the prime minister because it's our country. All those things, and we can do our best to try and do those, but the one, fear God. Fear Him with that reverential fear to know that really He's got all the other ones covered. He's got all those other ones down for us. Honoring men, loving brother, honoring king. I can do all those if I fear Him. And that's the key. Fear God. Again, not with that cowering fear, but that reverential, where you can look at Him and say, God, I just don't know what to say. You've done so much, and I'm not acting, this is the way I really look at it. I go out and say, God, I just don't have words. And that's the way I look at God sometimes. And that's the fear that He wants us to have for Him, where we can look up and say, you're God. End of sentence. I don't know what else to say. It's that way where you look at Him and say, He's done all this. Hebrews 12:28 says, wherefore, we receiving a kingdom which cannot be moved, let us have grace, whereby we may serve God acceptably with reverence and godly fear. We serve Him with reverence and fear. Like, I said, if you're going to see the king and the queen, if you've got a gift to give to the queen, you don't just walk up and say, here's your gift and walk away. There's protocol. You come in a certain way. You wait till you're spoken to. You come to a certain spot. You say the proper words. You present it. You step back. There's a protocol. Now, God, in a way, has a protocol, but in a way, He doesn't. I don't know how else to explain this. There is a protocol to coming before God. You don't just walk up and say, hey, God, how are you? Slap Him on the shoulder. And some people get that impression. Yes, He's our friend. Yes, he wants us. Yes, He will hug us. But there's that reverential awesomeness. You've got to realize who He is. Yes, you can have Him as a friend. Yes, you can talk to Him like a friend. Yes, you can say, God, I need help. What are you doing? You can talk to Him like you can talk to anybody else. He will listen to you. He will accept you. He doesn't want you to be perfect. He wants you to come to Him. But there's still kind of that protocol when you come to God where you say, God, I understand who you are. I know you're my friend. But I understand what you've done. I know I can come to you as I am. But I understand you are holy. And I can never be holy enough, clean enough to be in that holiness. But because I understand all that, I can come to him as a friend. I can come to him. Anyway, put my arm around him and say, God, I need to go for a walk today. We all get those places sometimes where, you have those hard times. Say, God, I just want you to come and walk with me for a while. I want to talk to you. And if we come to him just as somebody who might have answers for us, or if we come to him as somebody who's important in our lives, or if we come to him as somebody who we know will have answers, we're missing it. We have to come to him as the God that is so holy, I can't come to him, but I can because he's accepted me. I've got to come to him as a God who's created the universe, but still sees me as significant, even though I am insignificant. And I hope you're catching this, it's hard to explain because there are those paradoxes where I will never be clean enough, holy enough to come before him, but he invites me to come before him. There is no way I can ever become even close enough to be significant in his eyes compared to the universe, but I am significant. I am the most important thing in his eyes. It's that understanding of the God that brings that reverential, awesome fearness of God into my life, where I can go out and say, God, I know who you are. I know I can never be good enough. I know all this. I know I'm not good. But I know because of you, I am. And I can come and say, God, I got to go for a walk today with you. I just need some answers. They don't, and it might be the simplest thing in the world to you, but to God it's an important answer. It could be, my life is falling apart, God, I need your help. And it could be like, God, I'm just having a bad day. I just need to walk with you. If we have that reverential, respectful, awe-inspiring attitude of God, and I know the Bible says that fear, and I just don't like that word, the fear of God. But if we have that awesome attitude towards God, that reverential attitude toward God, he will answer us from that position. I mean, you think about it, the God that made all this can answer me from a position of somebody who made everything. God, I'm having a bad day. You know what, son? I know. My son had a bad day too. Yeah, he can relate to it. And he can say, I can be with you. And I think if we have that awesome reverential fear of God, all of those things become much more real. I know they do to me. When I can say, I can go out and just stand and look up. And for the last, I often walk and pray at night. And for a long time it would be, I'd take the list of, all the church people with me. I'd pray with that, pray for the pastors. And you go through, I wouldn't say, but go through cycles. And the last while it's just been walking and say, God, thank you. Thank you. Not thank you for, just thank you. Because I don't know what else to say. I mean, I guess I could say thank you for my children, thank you for my grandchildren, thank you for my family at church, thank you for my health, thank you for this country. I'd go through a million things I could be thankful for. But none of them are what I'm thankful for. Just thank you. End of sentence. And I find myself walking and say, God, thank you. Yeah, thank you. I don't know what for. Just thank you. Because he is that awesome person. I don't know. I lose words. Because, I mean, how can you come up with a word to describe what he's done? I mean, pick anything, whether it's, Jesus dying on the cross, whether it's making the universe, whether it's making a hummingbird. How can you come up with a word to describe somebody who does that? And then you put it all together and he did it all. Rather than just say, thank you. I don't know. But no matter where we are in our life, no matter where we are in our struggles. And, some people have more struggles than others, but everybody's got struggles. Some struggles are deep, deep in here. Some struggles are up here. Some struggles are out here, and we don't notice them, but everybody's got struggles. And the struggles attack everybody differently. Some people, like I'm with this, what's that boy's name again? I can never remember it. Yep, Sarah. My brain cannot get around how some people are dealing with it. I don't want to name names, but I look at them and think, how can you, I thank God it's never happened to me, but I don't know if I could handle it. I mean, how do you get past that? But they've obviously got it, they have this fear of God that's in them. They know that no matter what, it's okay. And that's a struggle. To me, I think it would tear me apart. But God is with them in that struggle. And they seem to be coming through it well, I don't know. But no matter what our struggle is, God will pull us through it. If we see him as that awe-inspiring person who just does it. I don't know how else to word it. Because he can do that. And when we were at the conference this weekend, one thing Kelly Stickle says that he started doing is every service he has, doesn't matter what they preached on, every service. And he said, you got to start doing this. Every service has to have an altar call. He says, because you never know. You have no idea. He says, you know everybody. Like, I know everybody here. I know everybody. I know some people have struggles. Well, I should say I know everybody's got struggles. But I know what a few people have struggles are, but to be honest, some of you, I have no clue what's going on in your life. So I could look out and say, oh, yeah, everybody here looks good. We'll go home now. No. He said, you'd have no idea. So he said, every service should have an altar call. So whether it's for salvation, whether it's for, God, I got to struggle, I need you. Whether it's just to come up here and spend time with God and say, God, I need to see. Yeah, again, I'm not sure where I need to see what you are, to understand. Whether it be any of those things, if you want to come forward for prayer, I will pray for you. Whether it's, like I said, whether it's for salvation, we look out and Kelly said, you look out and say, everybody's saved. He said, well, maybe they want to rededicate. Maybe you think they're saved. Maybe they think. He said, you have no idea. So whether it's for salvation, whether you want to come up to just be prayed for, whether it's just to spend time and say, God, let me see you for who you are. Because sometimes that's all it is, God, let me see you for who you are. And be ready for the answer. Because sometimes it makes you step back. Because we don't see, most times I don't see God for who he is. I know that. I see God as, I need help today, God. But when you step back and say, God, let me see you for, what did Moses say? Let me see you. And God said, no. Moses, no, don't ask that, Moses. But I want to see you guys. Moses, no, listen. Tell you what. I'll let you see the back part of me a little bit as you're standing in the cleft as I go by. But cover your eyes because you just can't handle it. And really, that's, when we say, God, let me see you, we got to be ready. Moses said, God, let me see you. And God said, no, you just can't handle it. I'll let you see the backside of me a little bit as I pass by. Notice you just say a little bit. I'll put you in a cleft, in a crack in the rock, so that a split second you'll see a little bit, and that's all you can handle. What happened when he came down from the mountain? He shone so much people were afraid of him. That was from that much, well, I'm exaggerating, less than that much of God. So when we say I want to see you, God, you're asking a big question. But will he show you? He'll show you enough of what you need. He showed Moses enough of what he needed. So, altars are open, whether it be for salvation, for prayer, for healing, for whatever. Come forward, we'll pray, or if you just want to pray by yourself, I'd say maybe just kind of keep to the side so we know, then I'll know you just want to pray by yourself. Okay, so Lord, we just ask you to be with us at this time. Lord, to open hearts, to open our hearts so we can hear what you want us to hear. And get our brains out of the way when you speak, Lord. That we won't be thinking, why am I doing this? What will somebody beside me think? But we just hear your voice and our heart takes over, Lord, and we listen to your voice of guidance. And Lord, for me also, Lord, if anybody that wants prayer, you give me wisdom to hear your voice for prayer. Amen. Thank you, Lord. Amen.